Hey everybody, welcome to my Halloween spooktacular. Woo! Today we're talking about this scary movie, Ordinary World. What? A comedy? About turning 40? Huh. Well, nothing scarier than turning 40. Hey everybody, Sexy Matt the Pharaoh Wizard here. So today we're talking Ordinary World. So if you follow me on Twitter, you know I'm a huge Green Day fan. So that's what initially brought this movie to my attention. Is that's the first starring role for Green Day's lead singer Billie Joe Armstrong. After seeing the trailer, I really wasn't super into it, but I looked at who else is in it, and I saw it had Judy Greer. Yes, I freaking love Judy Greer. And I noticed there was a hole in my schedule, and I wanted to throw in a review, and there's really nothing else I was excited about. So I was like, fine, we'll check out Ordinary World. So I went and saw Ordinary World. So here we go. So the overall plot of Ordinary World is it follows Perry around. Perry was in a punk rock band. Didn't really make it huge, but really was into the rock lifestyle, but had kids, and now is trying to live in this, quote, ordinary world. And he now has hit 40 and is having a bit of a midlife crisis. And, trying to figure out where he is in life and what he wants to do kind of thing. And that's the overall plot. It's your midlife crisis style movie. We've seen it a few times, but it can be done well or not, but that's your overall plot. So let's talk about the characters in the movie. So obviously we got Billie Joe Armstrong playing Perry, which the whole movie revolves around, and this is Billie Joe Armstrong's first starring role in a movie. And usually musicians are not good actors. And before you say anything, David Bowie, like most things, is the exception, not the rule. But anyways, he actually does a really good job. He's very earnest. I never think of him as Billie Joe. He feels as Perry. You feel him in the role, and he does a really good job in the role. There's no bad line deliveries or anything. He does a pretty good job actually. I give him a lot of props. He's very charismatic, very entertaining. He does a really good job. So his wife is Karen, played by Selma Blair. She's not in a huge part of this movie, and really no one else is. It is mostly Perry's story, which may be part of the detriment of this movie, is that he doesn't have anyone to bounce off of. It's just kind of people coming in and out kind of thing. But anyways, his wife, Selma Blair, has a few things. She does a good job. Really no complaints. I usually like Selma Blair. Not a lot I can say about her. Although he does make her mad at one point, and you should be careful if you make Selma Blair mad.
You should be running.
So then you got Christy, played by Judy Greer. And I absolutely love Judy Greer, and she's great in this too. She brings a lot of energy, does just a fantastic job, and I just love how she pops into movies these days. Just random, drive-by Judy Greering. And yeah, I think she's just fantastic. You know how people say they want to hang out with a celebrity or an actor or whatever? I think Judy Greer would want to hang out with me. I think she'd call me up and be like, hey Matt, let's go get some coffee and hang out. So just throwing that out there, Judy Greer. I think we'd be good buds. And then finally, the last main person I can really talk about is Perry's friend Gary, played by Fred Armisen. He's a former bandmate of Perry's. He does a lot of his normal straight man delivery. He doesn't get too crazy. He's just he does a good job for what he's given. There's not a whole lot that he was given to do, though. which is sort of part of the problem of this movie. But overall, I think everyone did a really good job. So what worked well about Ordinary World? Well, first right off the bat, the music is fantastic. You get technically two, but three original songs by Billie Joe Armstrong. One of them is the title track, Ordinary World, which is on Green Day's new album, Revolution Radio. And it's a fantastic song. There's also cuts from Joan Jett, a few other bands. The music is really well done and obviously brought to cater into Billie Joe kind of thing. And it's just fantastic. A lot of good music. Like I said before, everyone did a good job acting-wise. Everyone felt very earnest, very real. Technically, this movie is done very well. It's shot well, edited well, acted well, directed well. It was technically a good movie. That being said, what didn't work about Ordinary World? Well, in the end, this movie is pointless. There's no lessons learned. There's nothing at stake. It's just things that happened. It's the theatrical equivalent of the story of, I wanted a bagel, so I went and got a bagel and I ate it. Nothing happened on the way to getting it. It's just a thing that happened. And that's this movie is just a thing that happened, and it ends up being just totally uninteresting. I related this movie a lot towards Clerks 2 in my mind, because Clerks 2, although had all the gross out humor and things, in the end was a midlife crisis movie. It's about a guy who's trying to decide if he's doing things because he wants to or because society's telling him to, as well as a man seeing, two divergent tracks in his life and realizing there's actually a third option. And it really talks about that and delves into that and gives you a lot of lessons with that. This touches on that sort of thing, but doesn't do anything with it. It just says it exists. It's just like people dwell on their past. Well, yeah, so? Well, just people do it. Like, that's the movie's answer. There's just no discussion. There's no arc. There's just nothing that's done. It's just things that happened. If they wanted to go the I need to party kind of thing, which they sort of hint at in the trailer, and he's got a party in this hotel, but nothing's really brought into it. He kind of has this party, but nothing really comes of it. He's just like, well, I guess I really don't like to party. Like, they didn't go full, if the party was this big blowout with huge things happening, then it would have made more sense, but they didn't go far enough with the party to pull off that arc. The other option they could have done, and they sort of touched on, is trying to relive your past, but realizing your past is better seen through nostalgia goggles. But it doesn't really go down that road either, showing his past was grim and grungy or whatever. It was just a thing that happened again, and just didn't care. And, Judy Greer's like his ex-girlfriend, and they're trying to reconnect, and you'd think maybe he's going to cheat on his wife. That doesn't happen. It just gets close to doing a thing, but then doesn't do anything. Really, it felt like an episode of a sitcom. Like, the sitcom Ordinary World, where a former punk rocker, Perry, tries to live in the suburban life. This episode of Ordinary World, Perry turns 40. What happens when Perry gets together with his old friends and has a party? Will he make it to his daughter's recital on time? Find out this week on Ordinary World. That's what it was. Just like it had the stakes of a sitcom. Like, it just wasn't movie material. I think in the end, it was just, again, just things that happened, and it was just totally uninteresting. The other problem it really had is it piled too much on, which ended up hurting it too much. So let me kind of explain. This all happens over a course of one day. The problem with that is Perry goes into work that day. He works for his brother, and his brother's like, oh, it's your birthday. Here's $1,000. Go have some fun. So that would be fine. That's a good setup for that party thing that I was talking about before. We have a big blowout party and things go too far. But he has his daughter's recital that night, as well as he has to meet with his in-laws. So it creates this time restriction where he can't really go nuts at this party because he's got to go to his daughter's recital. And it's not like a surprise recital, he's known about it. So the other problem is he's trying to have like a midday blowout party, which apparently he would have ended up being sober enough to go back to his daughter's recital. Like what that doesn't make any sense. They just wrote themselves into a corner, creating this like time restriction now that he has to enjoy this party but then still get back, and it's just weak, man. I guess I don't really know what else more I could say. It's just a pointless movie. Also, it's labeled as a comedy. It's not very funny. If you got your down-to-earth comedy things like Juno, 500 Days of Summer, things like that, where it is realistic and not abstract craziness funny. But it's got like one or two kind of funny lines, but it's not really funny either. So it doesn't even have that going for it. It's just, there's not a lot going for this movie. Let's just get into spoilers. Click the Green Day album and to skip over spoilers if you still don't even want any spoilers, but you're not going to see this movie, let's face it. But spoilers from now on. So he's given this big choice at the sort of near the end. I don't know if this is supposed to be the climax, what the deal is, but Judy Greer's character is Joan Jett's manager. She hears him play Ordinary World and wants him to play it for Joan Jett, but he also, like I said, had to get to his daughter's recital. And it was like this choice of going off with Judy Greer or going to his daughter's recital. But the thing is, he's friends with Judy Greer, so he could have been like, hey, give me your number and let's get together, set up a time with me to meet with Joan Jett and we'll set this up later. I have to go to my daughter's thing right now. Like, he could have done both. There's really not a choice there. You could have done both. So, why is this supposed to be the big dramatic thing when you could have done both things? You could have had it all, Perry. And just, again, that's just where it tries to do things but doesn't know how to have stakes. And then in the end, there's like this weird twist where it's not really his birthday. He got the date wrong on his birthday and it's actually tomorrow. And so, like, this whole thing of his wife forgetting his birthday was just ended up being moot. And it ended up being just a really pointless addition at the end where it's like, oh, no, it's not really your birthday. Why? Can we just get this movie over with? I mean, it's only an hour and a half long, but good lord, you felt every minute of it. You're just waiting for something to happen, and it just never happens. So let's just wrap this up. Maybe I'm being harsh on this because I looked up, it's Rotten Tomatoes, and it's doing okay. But I just didn't care for this movie at all. It was just, like I said, it's pointless in the end. I'm okay with your down-to-earth, coming-of-age, or midlife crisis movies. Things like Stranger Than Fiction, All Things Must Go, 500 Days of Summer. They have good things that happen, and they discuss, problems of life and things like that. But they actually discuss them. They don't just say, like, that's a thing. And that's all this movie does is say that's a thing. And it's just pointless. It had no real lesson learned. Perry didn't change. Nobody really changed. There was no arc. It was just things that happened. So I'm going to have to give this the lowest rating I have since I implemented my rating system. And I'm going to have to say, don't bother with this movie. There's no reason to watch this movie. You don't need to rent it. You don't need to bother. There's no point to this movie existing. Like I said, Billie Joe does a good job, and I don't think this is the end of his acting career. HBO actually greenlit a movie version of American Idiot stage play. And when it was on Broadway, a few times Billie Joe played the role of St. Jimmy. I would imagine he's going to revive that for the actual movie version of American Idiot. So I don't think this is the end of him. He did a good job, but in the end, this movie is going to be forgotten to the ages. It's just going to kind of disappear. It's going to leave no mark. So yeah, not a good movie. And that's kind of the frustrating part. Is I know like movies just getting made is a minor miracle, and like I said, it's a very technically well-made movie, and they had no like cringeworthy moments. It didn't like piss me off, but it just had no point. It just in the end, I actually at the end of it, I just literally said out loud like, "What was the point of all this? There is no point to this movie." Anyways, so that's Ordinary World. I'm Sexy Matt the Pharaoh Wizard. Till next time, hold on to your hold slots.